I really like the studio to feel like a place of action and life and liveliness. And I think that comes out in the paintings. Like the things that you do outside of painting are so important to your painting practice. You really have to feed your soul and your body and your mind in lots of ways to bring it back to the studios. Even though it's very abstract, I think it comes out in the paint. Like every gesture is connected to your hand and your life and how you feel at that time. And maybe it's pointless, but maybe it's beautiful. And there's room for that in the world. My painting studio's in Darlinghurst in Sydney. How the space is set up is really important to me. I like it to be a constantly changing arrangement of objects. From the mountains to the ocean, I'm finding inspiration and bringing it up into this space, and it has to feel really alive. And I think I get that from my floristry days. Life is sort of sped up in a flower shop because things are constantly in a state of decay, and so it's like our lives, you know, exaggerated. And I like the studio to always have that feeling. Still life really draws me in because that's kind of how I started painting. I'm interested in intimacy and connection and the history of still life and the domestic interior. So moving with the seasons, painting the flowers in season, not only do they signify a moment in time in my life, but a moment in time in general. They're just a really beautiful sort of staple of my practice that I keep coming back to. Then the interiors that I do are really like a diary of my life and where I'm at the time. And my landscape paintings, they're probably the most important to my practice. There is a rhythm with the process of painting that is quite intuitive for me. Often I'm at my most playful at the very beginning. That leads to lots of happy accidents, but then there's times for more pulling back and restraint and careful decision making and problem solving. Particularly because I work with such large canvases, I often lay them on the ground first and kind of draw or map out just a rough composition. After that dries, I lift it up on the wall, and that's when I can sort of really hone in and define some areas. And so much of painting is what you don't put on and what you take out, knowing when to have a light touch and an intense touch. And so it's a real dance. Probably the last 10% of the painting is the most time-consuming part. So it's those last little accents that I really enjoy thinking about carefully. That is where some of the magic happens. When I have a few paintings that are at that sort of upright painting level, I can move my painting trolley that my brother made for me around the studio. It has all my paints on one side, and then I just mix my paint straight onto a piece of wood that over the years has gathered thickness, so it's now an undulating paint table. So it's really where all the decisions get made, and then I take them to the canvas. I think about my painting trolley like my little universe of colour. Colour for me is really a feeling, and it might be a mood, it might be I'm drawn to a colour obsessively for a period of time because it's out in nature so much. Like I'm in a yellow phase at the moment because there's so much wattle around, but I think I have a real affinity and natural ability with colour, I suppose. Like I can match it. It's like my superpower. I can match two colours perfectly just by sight. That's the one thing about painting I find quite easy. I think in the climate crisis, a lot of us feel like there's a powerlessness, that's feeling a futility around the whole thing that's really upsetting. And I started my Great Barrier Reef series because I was obsessively reading about the bleaching of the reef. And when I feel sad about something, I put it into paint. In 2017, I travelled to Lizard Island, which is at the far north tip of the Great Barrier Reef, to the research station there. Lizard Island was at the epicentre of the mass bleaching event, so it had really suffered a huge loss of coral biodiversity. And I got to work alongside scientists in their lab, and I realised that artists and scientists are actually quite similar. We take in information, interpret it, and then put it back out into the world. After the Great Barrier Reef series, I really wanted to paint more wild places, and I really felt a responsibility to paint about the climate. So I ended up going to Antarctica. It's an incredibly challenging place to paint. It's the idea of Antarctica being the engine room of the planet, and just the sheer scale of it pushed me in another direction with my practice and how to actually convey an emotion about a place. So I ended up choosing to do that through using really like jarring colours, and really tried to lean into using colour to convey emotion.
It's very serious.
Very serious.
When I was in art school, one of my printmaking teachers was Diana Davidson. We really clicked. She's got an amazing sense of humour. But then a few years went by and she invited me to come and do some prints in her printmaking studio. She thought that monotypes would be quite suited to my practice of paintings. And I felt enormously honoured because she is a living legend. Dad, what year did you start printmaking?
What, darling?
What year did you start printmaking?
Oh, God gracious. 1977. And don't say before you were born.
Well, I got that wrong. I thought it was in the 60s.
You said the 60s? Oh, thanks. Thanks.
Whoops. I really resisted the monotype at first because it's actually quite difficult. It's a real language of texture, and the subtleties of the consistency of the ink can make or break it. And she would encourage me not to give up. I reckon the bluey table was a bit better, the bluey grey, not the purpley grey.
You don't like that? You think it's too warm?
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, because you've got a much warmer yellow one like this one up here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's better.
That's
much better. Why did we think the other one?
I don't know.
That was you, Laura.
I was trying to be different. And then I started to get addicted to the process of it. It's something that you're constantly trying to achieve, is getting a really unified surface. Do you think that's good, Claire?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's great.
And then it gets run through the press with a piece of lovely thick cottony paper, and that sort of heavy pressure is like a tattoo into skin. It sort of really embeds the ink into the surface of the paper, and so when you peel it up, it's either fantastic or terrible, and you can tweak it a little bit but not too much, or you ruin the uniformity of the surface of the thing.
I still think that's beautiful.
It's nice.
It's much wilder and it's different.
It's more wild.
It's more wild, yeah, Pete?
Yeah.
I feel like the monotype practice has really enhanced the painting practice in that I've learnt to leave things and to let things be what they are. And if it's imperfect, it's actually quite beautiful. I suppose it's like wabi-sabi. You turn that mistake into beauty and really let the process sort of lead and let it be what it is and then see what magic comes out of it. Just a kind of a nice way of thinking about moving through life in general.
The winner of the 2024 Archibald Prize is Laura Jones for her portrait of Tim Winton. Well done, Laura. Congratulations.
Portraiture, for me, it's about honouring the person that I'm painting. Painting someone can really illuminate what they believe in, and really that's how I came to wanting to paint Tim. I admired him so much for his environmental advocacy work, particularly on Ningaloo Reef. And I knew of his books, had studied Cloud Street in high school. He was a bit of a reluctant subject, so I felt very lucky when he said yes. When I met him in Fremantle, we talked a lot about the reef and what it's like to work alongside scientists and how illuminating that can be. And so I wanted a really direct, quite bold image of him that reflected that conversation. He's so humble and I didn't want him too posed. So he's standing there quite awkwardly, as he was in real life. And I really felt like I got just a moment in time with him. So a kind of recurring theme in my conversation with Tim was that the purpose of art is not to persuade but to enchant. And I really took a lot away from that, because at the moment when people were so concerned and worried about the future of our reefs and our wild places and our own very existence, like what do we do but to engage and be enchanted by it and continue to love and express joy and be in nature. So I want people to see what I see and feel what I feel and share in that with me. That's the beginning of all of it.